Well, this is a place where we say no perfect people allowed. And so for just a moment, can we be really honest with each other? Have you ever woken up in the morning just in a funk? You didn't want to get out of bed. You just wanted to lay there, didn't have the energy, the desire. Perhaps you're overwhelmed with personal circumstances or the weight of the world. That's how I felt on Veterans Day. I hate to admit, but I just laid there after my wife went off to work. I just laid there for 3 hours watching clips from ESPN and playing solitaire. I got a lot of solitaire done that morning. But I didn't want to waste the whole day, and so I decided to go on a walk. And there's a practice in the scriptures that I've found to be really helpful in moments like this. It's this idea of lament, of just expressing your sorrow to God. In fact, the scriptures are clear. This is a practice that we need to engage in, where we can share our anxieties, our fears, our concerns, our frustrations with God. King David, who wrote many of the Psalms, was considered a man after God's own heart, and he did this over and over and over, and he would end his Psalms with, "But even still, I trust you, Lord." So I decided to do this. I've done it many times before, and so I just began on this walk, just sharing my heart with God, just frustrated, angry, praying for a family who lost their husband, a friend of mine who tragically took his life, leaving behind his wife and his 2 adult young children. And then I began praying for those who were overwhelmed with all that's happening in their lives, friends in South Austin that I just knew were overwhelmed, and I was overwhelmed on their behalf. I began praying for a situation, an unresolved conflict where I felt misunderstood. I hurt someone I didn't mean to, and I felt betrayed and abandoned. And I just went on, and for 45 minutes, I had a lot to share with God. And then I found myself at this heritage oak tree. It's supposed to be about 300 years old. And I just sat there, I opened up my journal, and I summarized all that I'd been praying for, and I ended it with, "But God, even still, I will trust you." And I asked God to just take these concerns, these parts of my life that were overwhelming me, and just leave them there in the woods at that tree. I asked him to reveal himself to me, show himself to me. And then I went on my walk and continued. But now I shifted. Now I was thanking God for answers to prayer. I was praising him for who he was. And I didn't see an angel appear on the trail. I didn't have a vision of God. I didn't hear his voice from on high audibly. But I have to tell you, something miraculous actually did happen. As I was walking along and thanking God for answers to prayer, praising him for who he is and times he showed up in my life, suddenly I noticed birds flying towards me and landing in trees next to me. And then as I continued to walk, I saw grasshoppers jumping out of the way as I was going down the trail, and then butterflies. There were butterflies all around me, just flying in front of me, one kind of following along beside me. Suddenly I felt like Snow White must have felt with all the animal creatures coming in the forest. And so I began to sing, ha, 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 ha. No, I didn't. I did not sing. In fact, my daughter helped create an image of that moment. Here I am in the woods. Now, some of you might be skeptical that this even happened. But it did. I tell you, there were birds all around, grasshoppers jumping, butterflies fluttering all around me. Now, it's possible this was happening in the first part of my walk. Absolutely possible, but I can guarantee you this, I did not see one of them. I only began to see them in the midst of having a heart of gratitude. I began to see God's presence all around me. You see, when I saw the birds, I was reminded that Jesus said not to worry, that our Heavenly Father even cares for the birds of the air. How much more will he care for you? When I saw the grasshoppers making way for me along the trail, I was reminded that time in the scriptures where the people of Israel were too scared to enter into the promised land because they felt like grasshoppers among giants. I was that giant. The grasshoppers were moving out of my way. And to see the butterflies, I was reminded of the transformation, the metamorphosis that they go through to become as beautiful as they are. Reminded that God can take even the worst moments in our life and bring something beautiful out of it when we trust him. And so I want to just ask you, just in a moment of honesty, how are you doing in this season? Have you found yourself overwhelmed lately, wanting to just blow it all up and start all over?